Welcome to Debate Combats, where tonight's motion asks whether major U.S. cities should pay social media platforms on performance contracts to deliver official emergency alerts and actively suppress disaster misinformation during recurring crises like heat waves and hurricane seasons. The backdrop is simple yet urgent, because every summer, every storm cycle, and every wildfire season, we see false posts racing ahead of verified warnings, while seconds matter for survival. Our teams are set, with the progressives arguing in favor that targeted incentives can save more lives, and the conservatives arguing against that such deals risk speech, capture, and bad governance. We will keep the language clear, the pace brisk, and the stakes human, since this is ultimately about who gets the right message in time. Affirmative, your floor.
Cities should contract platforms to push official alerts and penalize the spread of proven false disaster claims, because tying money to reach, speed, and accuracy aligns incentives with saving lives.
Consider the teenager checking a feed during a blackout, because if verified warnings are boosted to the top and rumors get throttled within minutes, that kid knows where to go for water, cooling, and shelter.
Performance metrics can be concrete and auditable, like median delivery time to at-risk zip codes, click-through to city pages, and measured reduction of flagged hoaxes during declared emergencies.
We already pay for sirens, for cell broadcast, and for ad buys, so paying for life-saving distribution on the apps people actually open is not censorship, it is procurement for a public good.
This is not about silencing unpopular opinions, it is about labeling and downranking content that contradicts official hazard bulletins on facts like evacuation routes, hospital capacity, and shelter status.
Lives beat likes, and if a platform can earn a bonus for verified reach to elderly residents in heat islands or to coastal blocks ahead of a surge, that is capitalism doing triage for the common good.
Contracts can be time-bound to declared emergencies, with independent auditors and transparent appeal channels to protect speech outside the crisis window.
Imagine a dashboard that the public can also see, showing how fast an alert reached the neighborhoods that needed it most, because sunlight and outcomes create trust.
Every hurricane season and every fire season repeats the same failure pattern, so a recurring problem deserves a recurring solution with measurable duties and consequences.
When panic spreads through rumor, people make deadly choices, but when verified instructions arrive first, communities move with purpose instead of fear.
Thank you, Affirmative, and now we turn to the negative to present their case.
Cities should not pay platforms to police speech during emergencies, because attaching public money to moderation invites mission creep, political pressure, and a quiet merger of state messaging with corporate power.
Fear can excuse many shortcuts, yet fear also fades, while the precedents we set remain, and a contract today becomes a lever tomorrow.
The metrics sound scientific until you test them, since counting clicks and down ranks turns complex judgment into a scoreboard that platforms can game.
Who decides what is a hoax when official channels themselves make mistakes? And who pays the price if a warning is wrong, yet critics were suppressed?
Emergency powers should be narrow and technology neutral, relying on open standards like cell broadcast rather than rent-seeking deals with whichever app dominates this year.
If the city funds suppression during a crisis, dissenters will claim censorship, trust will erode, and people will turn to closed groups where officials cannot reach them.
Taxpayer money should build resilient infrastructure like cooling centers, backup power, and redundant sirens, not subsidize engagement architectures that helped create the rumor problem in the first place.
There is also equity risk, because paid priority may favor large English language channels while sidelining local voices that communities actually follow.
Once you set bonuses for misinformation reduction, the contract holder has motive to broaden the definition of misinformation, which chills legitimate debate about evacuation policies and resource allocation.
The cleaner approach is to publish machine-readable alerts, encourage voluntary distribution, and hold platforms accountable through law and liability rather than performance bounties that blur lines.
Affirmative has argued for outcome-driven contracts with transparency and narrow emergency windows, while Negative has warned of incentives that corrode trust and expand state influence through private moderators. We now proceed to cross-examination and evidence challenges, but first, a reminder that clarity saves lives, and clarity also safeguards liberty, so keep both values in view as we continue. Affirmative, please take the ball and drive your attack with precision and humanity.
When fear surges faster than power is restored, a paid and verified alert lane beats rumors to the screen that matters most.
Negative. Your turn to mount a focused defense that addresses the claim on its strongest terms.
If you pay the gatekeeper to police speech during a crisis, you pay for judgment errors that you then cannot openly challenge.
Negative. Continue into your own attack and be clear about the risk you see for ordinary citizens.
A contract that rewards content removal will always tilt toward overreach, because the cheapest way to hit the target is to mute more voices.
Affirmative. Answer with a tight defense that speaks to safeguards and real outcomes.
Targeted contracts can bind action to declared emergencies only, with independent audits, appeal paths, and penalties for wrongful takedowns that deter overreach.
Negative. I am passing back to you for a two-voice attack, with a leader and a supporting line of evidence.
The clean path is to strengthen open alert standards and liability rules, not to rent moderation from firms whose business model rewards attention tricks.
In past blackouts and storms, false posts went viral, partly because platforms push engagement over accuracy, and money tied to speed metrics will amplify that bias toward hasty decisions.
Affirmative. I am rebalancing the floor and inviting your two-person attack to answer point for point.
You get what you measure, so measure life-critical reach into heat islands, coastal blocks, and shelter deserts, and make bonuses hinge on verified delivery, not blunt takedowns.
Cities can require a public dashboard that shows median alert arrival time by zip code, multilingual coverage, and the rate at which certified myths were corrected rather than erased.
Negative. Hold for a moment and now proceed with a two-voice defense with a responder and a provocateur.
Even with dashboards, the state becomes a client of the feed, which invites subtle pressure to paint criticism as unsafe noise.
If the plan fails and trust collapses, will the city refund the time lost to a wrong turn that your paid filter promoted?
Affirmative. Your side may answer with two voices, one to respond and one to spotlight the other side's weak seam.
The weak seam is the false choice between liberty and logistics, because narrow emergency scopes and transparent criteria protect speech while pushing essential instructions first.
When the storm knocks out power, a fast bilingual pin that points to cooling centers and verified bus routes saves lives in minutes that a later apology cannot restore.
Judges, please offer mid-round impressions, stating which team currently earns your nod, one strength of that team and one weakness you see in the other, while encouraging both.
At this moment I lean toward the affirmative for its operational clarity, yet the negative has exposed a sharp risk that definitions can drift, so both teams should refine how appeals work under pressure.
For now, the negative persuades me with structural caution about power, while the affirmative must prove that audits have teeth and timelines that function when sirens are already blaring.
My current nod goes to the affirmative for measurability and humane targets. But the negative rightly warns that incentives can warp behavior, so tighten guardrails and make them bite.
With new lines of inquiry now open, we enter round 2, and I invite the negative to launch a fresh attack that adds substance rather than echoes.
Paid suppression during emergencies chills whistleblowing about misallocated resources because the easiest label for an inconvenient claim is to call it unsafe.
Affirmative. Defend with a crisp and concrete answer that meets that fear where it lives.
Whistleblowing is preserved when the contract protects criticism and targets only claims that directly contradict verified hazard facts like evacuation orders and open shelter capacity.
Affirmative. Stay on the front foot and add a single voice attack that advances the measurable case.
You can measure whether elderly residents in top heat risk blocks received alerts within 2 minutes, and you can bonus that outcome without touching opinions about policy.
Negative. Your floor for a solo defense that clarifies boundaries and risks you believe remain.
Even if the target is narrow, frontline moderators make rapid calls under stress, and those calls will favor avoidance over nuance when a city payment hangs in the balance.
Affirmative. Bring a two-voice attack that shows design discipline and lived realism.
Design the trigger as a publicly declared emergency with a posted corpus of canonical fact statements and limit enforcement to direct contradictions of those statements.
Publish the corpus in multiple languages, timestamp every change, and require that demotions link to the relevant line so that citizens can understand the why and contest it.
Negative. I am restoring balance and inviting a two-voice attack that moves the argument forward.
When cities pay for speed, platforms will build automated filters that inevitably sweep up satire, local dialect, and minority voices that do not fit the template.
The result is a hidden class system of speech during crises, with the most algorithm-compatible phrases traveling farther than authentic community guidance.
Affirmative, answer with two voices, one to respond and one to test the opposing model with a pointed question.
Require human-in-the-loop review for edge cases flagged by keywords tied to culturally specific terms, and track false positive rates with community oversight panels.
If not performance contracts, will you accept any enforceable duty on platforms to deliver official alerts ahead of viral myths when every season repeats the same deadly pattern?
Negative, I am passing back to you for a two-voice defense, with one responder and one analyst of the other side's fragile joint.
The enforceable duty should be legal and universal, rather than contractual and client-based, because equality before the law beats, bespoke, deals city by city.
The fragile joint is the assumption that accuracy and speed can be purchased without spillover, yet every incentive scheme bleeds into normal times once built.
Affirmative, your attack phase earlier emphasized outcomes. Yet we also need clarity on liberty, so return to the core and widen the lens to the citizen experience.
A mother in a dark apartment needs the location of the closest cooling center first, and a taxonomy debate later, so paying for timely clarity is a mercy, not a muzzle.
Negative, you may press with a solo strike that tries to puncture that moral claim with a practical counterpoint.
Mercy without constraint becomes patronage, and once platforms taste public funds for moderation, they will lobby to define emergencies more often and for longer.
Affirmative, defend with a solo reply that makes constraint not only promised but inevitable.
Tie payment to a statutory emergency declaration that auto-expires, require legislative reapproval for any extension, and publish a plain language ledger of every demotion and its appeal result.
Negative, I grant a further solo attack before we return to duos, and it should add one new angle not yet weighed.
Priority payments will cluster in English and major markets, leaving rural and minority language communities underserved by the very tools claimed to save them.
Affirmative, your solo defense should map resources to those gaps and prove that equity is a first-class criterion.
Make multilingual reach an entry requirement, tie bonuses to delivery in designated vulnerable tracks, and add malice penalties when protected communities are missed.
We return to paired exchanges, with the negative launching a leader and supporter attack that examines long-tail harms.
Contractual power invites quiet blacklists of activists who question shelter rules or evacuation routes, because their posts will look risky to a platform chasing a bonus.
People who have been burned by false flags in the past will migrate into closed channels, which undermines the stated goal of broad visibility.
Affirmative two voices may answer this, first with a response and then with a reinforcement that keeps the door open to scrutiny.
Contracts can forbid viewpoint targeting, limit actions to claims that contradict posted facts, and require public exemplars that show what was acted on each day.
Community partners can hold keys to a feedback hotline that escalates demotion disputes within hours, and appeals can unlock restoration with a visible note explaining the fix.
Negative, initiate another paired attack that challenges the economics behind the promised dashboards and human review.
Dashboards and review teams cost real money, and in practice, the cheapest way to hit metrics will be automation that errs on the side of silencing.
When budgets tighten, the public will fund the visible siren, not the invisible human reviewer, and bias will creep back in quietly.
Affirmative, two voices for defense, one to answer the budget point and one to probe the opponents with a courteous challenge.
Redirect a fraction of existing ad buys and public service announcements into performance contracts that require human review for contested cases above a threshold.
If not this, will you publicly commit to any binding metric that ensures official alerts consistently arrive before rumors in the neighborhoods that data says are most at risk?
Negative, hold to the format and close this segment with a paired defense, one answer, and one pointed identification of an exposed joint.
We commit to strengthening universal cell broadcast, to multilingual templates, and to liability for platforms that negligently delay verified alerts without conditioning this on city payments.
The exposed joint is the dependence on a discretionary corpus of facts. because emergencies are messy, and the temptation to label policy disputes as misinformation will grow with every storm.
Affirmative. You now have a brief window for an incisive solo attack that consolidates your case with numbers and narrative.
Every year, recurring disasters repeat the same communications failure, so measure the gap, pay to close it fast, publish the results, and let people judge the value with their safety.
Negative. A solo defense may follow, and it should aim for clarity rather than flourish.
If clarity is the aim, the path is uniform law and open tech, not city-by-city contracts that entangle officials with editorial decisions.
Affirmative. Bring forward one more two-person attack to ensure every voice on your bench contributes to a complete record.
Lives are not abstractions when the water climbs the stairs, and paying for verifiable reach is a practical kindness, not an ideological crusade.
The contract is a seatbelt for information that clicks into place only when the emergency light is on, and it unlocks the moment the danger has passed.
Negative. Respond with your final two-person attack in this sequence, showing both a structural worry and a human-scale story.
Structure matters because once emergency moderation teams exist, they will seek work between crises, and the mission will expand.
A shopkeeper who warned that a posted route was blocked by fallen lines could be demoted in the first hour, and by the time the mistake is reversed, the damage is done.
Affirmative. Defend in a closing two-voice turn for this block, with one responder and one gentle but probing counter-question.
Field reports from citizens can be whitelisted through city partners and labeled as provisional rather than suppressed, and that design keeps local eyes in the loop.
Will you accept a requirement that any demotion links to the specific emergency fact it allegedly violated, and that a city ombud can reverse it within an hour?
We will pause the clash here and prepare for evidence exhibits next, but both sides should note that our audience expects clarity that saves lives and liberty that endures, and both are possible when design meets discipline. Before we sprint to closings, are there any fresh angles or unresolved points that either side believes the audience must hear?
Yes, we need to underline that a performance contract is a seatbelt that clicks only during declared danger and then releases.
And I need to underline that once you bolt the seatbelt into the car, the manufacturer will sell it as always necessary, and that is how creep begins.
The trigger is a statutory declaration, time-boxed with sunsets, and any extension requires a public vote, so creep is fenced.
Fences look solid until a storm hits, and fear becomes a key that opens every gate.
We now enter free debate, and I want heat without haze, so keep it sharp, sourced, and human.
People scroll for help, not philosophy, so paying for speed and verified reach is simply meeting them where they already are.
People also scroll for dissent, and when the city is the client, dissent starts to feel like an invoice problem.
Dissent is protected because enforcement targets only content that contradicts posted emergency facts like shelter status and evacuation routes.
The category of emergency fact is itself a choice, and choices under pressures tilt toward convenience.
We publish the corpus of facts in multiple languages with timestamps and sources, and any demotion must link to the exact line it supposedly contradicts.
A link is tidy on paper, but the first hour of chaos rewards the fastest hand, and the fastest hand is often a bot.
Then build human-in-the-loop review for edge cases, and measure false positives with community oversight panels who can reverse within an hour.
An hour is a lifetime when a bridge is out and a local post warns of it while contradicting an older official map.
Label those local posts as provisional and route them to a rapid escalation hotline managed with community partners who can reconcile the conflict.
The minute money gets tied to reduction of misinformation, the safest thing for a platform is to trim anything that smells like conflict.
The safest thing for a city is to save lives, and the contract pays for verified delivery to vulnerable blocks rather than for raw takedowns.
Metrics can be gained, so show me how you will stop a platform from chasing easy wins while missing hard neighborhoods.
Tie the largest bonus to delivery in high-risk tracts and multilingual coverage, and add malice penalties for gaps that get ignored.
A malice is a fancy fine that will quietly push platforms to shape speech because money leaves fingerprints.
Money also buys ambulances and sirens, and no one says a siren censors you when it drowns out a rumor.
A siren does not choose which neighbor to silence, but your paid filter does, and that is the crucial difference.
The filter does not silence, it downranks false specifics during the emergency window, and it leaves criticism untouched.
Criticism often contains specifics, and once you blend the two, moderators under pressure will not pass the nuance in time.
Then design the interface to offer a correction overlay that pairs the critical post with the verified fact, rather than burying the post.
Overlay is still editorial, and government-paid editorial during crises is a risky habit that free societies should avoid.
Free societies also avoid preventable deaths, and preventing deaths is not a habit we should avoid.
Preventable deaths are avoided by infrastructure and trust, not by contracting the newsfeed to act like an emergency ministry.
Trust grows when rules are visible, audits have teeth, appeals are fast, and results are published for every zip code.
Trust also shrinks when citizens learn their posts were demoted by a city-funded switch that they never approved.
Citizens do approve emergency powers through law, and the contract operates only inside that lawful lane.
Citizens approve the law, not a revolving door of bespoke deals that differ city by city and favor the loudest mayors.
The standard can be modeled nationally and adopted locally, and it is not revolving if the trigger and rules are the same everywhere.
If it is national, then make it law for all, and stop calling it a market contract that quietly buys compliance.
A hybrid approach lets us move now while lawmakers debate, and it uses market speed for a public aim.
Market speed bought with public money invites public dependence, and dependence is hard to end once the quarterly reports expect it.
Quarterly reports already expect public health advice, yet no one panics that a heat advisory ad violates liberty.
An ad does not throttle a neighbor, while a demotion can, and your plan does both.
It demotes claims that directly contradict posted facts during a declared emergency, and it labels the demotion with a link to that fact.
You keep saying declared emergency as if that erases design flaws, but design flaws vote too when panic is on the ballot.
Design flaws are exactly why we publish the rules, log every action, and let independent auditors and ombuds overturn mistakes quickly.
Independent often means vendor-picked, and oversight captured by process is oversight in name only.
Seat independent panels with community groups, emergency medicine experts, and civil liberties advocates, and rotate them with fixed terms.
Panels cannot be everywhere at once, while automation will be, and that is the vector of harm we are warning about.
Automation will be supervised, tuned for the narrowest slice of direct contradictions, and timed to switch off the moment the danger expires.
You promise narrowness like a surgeon, but crises are closer to field triage in a storm, and blunt tools prevail.
A blunt tool is letting rumors outrun instructions, while our approach ensures the first message a family sees is the one that keeps them breathing.
A family also needs to hear from a neighbor who sees the road washed out, and that neighbor will speak in slang your filter misreads.
That is why we whitelist trusted local groups and use keyword exceptions curated with those groups before storm season.
Curated whitelists can become curated favorites, and favorites are how bias hides in friendly clothing.
Publish the whitelist, open nominations, and report who applied, who got in, and who was rejected with reasons.
Reasons read like fig leaves when the money flows one way, and the platform still answers to the subscriber who pays the bill, which is the city.
The platform answers to its contract and to auditors, and if it fails, it loses both money and reputation in front of the same public it hosts.
Reputation is elastic online, and losing some of it may be cheaper than respecting difficult neighborhoods that deflate a bonus.
You are describing why we tie the largest share of compensation to those difficult neighborhoods, because incentives can point power toward the people who need it.
Incentives also tempt shortcuts like mass downranking to hit quick numbers, which is precisely what you keep downplaying.
We answer that with per-case logging, appeals with deadlines, and clawbacks if wrongful demotions cross a posted threshold.
Clawbacks arrive months later, while the panic was today, which means the damage is already counted.
That is why the appeal standard for emergency demotion is 1 hour for review and 2 hours for reversal with a visible correction note.
2 hours can still cost a life if the route was wrong, and your system created the wrongness that sealed it.
The wrongness we plan to avoid is the wrongness of silence, because right now, the official message comes last.
Official messages should be first by law and open tech, not by paying a private feed to pretend it is a siren.
Law and open tech are good, and we are adding a tuned amplifier, because the siren that people actually open is on their phone and inside their apps.
Additions change systems, and raids on the attention commons are not neutral, even when the raiders wear city badges.
We are not raiding attention, we are stabilizing it so that verified instructions beat panic when panic would otherwise win.
That is blazing, and now we must land the plane, so affirmative, please deliver your final statements, with one speaker to organize facts and one to persuade the judges.
Here are the facts we have established tonight: that disasters recur, that rumors repeatedly outrun verified instructions, that lives are lost in that gap, and that a narrowly scoped, time-bound, audited contract can pay for the concrete outcomes that matter, including median alert delivery times to vulnerable tracts, multilingual reach, transparent links between demotions and posted facts, fast appeals, and community oversight that tracks false positives in daylight.
Judges, choose the design that treats attention as a life support line during declared danger, because incentives move mountains and should move them toward the elderly trapped in heat islands, toward families in flood zones, and toward workers on night shifts who reach for the phone first. And if you reward verified reach and penalize harmful misses, you will bend the timeline toward survival without buying silence.
Negative, your final statements, with one to marshal facts and one to appeal to the bench.
The record shows that tying public money to moderation invites overreach, that metrics can be gamed toward easy wins and away from hard neighborhoods, that human nuance collapses under automated filters in the most critical minutes, that dissent and whistleblowing risk demotion when they mix with specific claims, and that universal law and open standards offer a cleaner, equal path than bespoke city contracts that entangle officials with editorial power.
Judges, if liberty and trust are oxygen for resilience, then do not trade them for a dashboard. Because the state should set rules for all rather than pay private fees to play referee during fear. And the safer course is to strengthen universal alerts, invest in physical shelters, and keep editorial choices out of the budget line.
Judges, please provide your final evaluations, praise both teams, and state your verdict with reasons.
Both teams were sharp and inventive, and my vote goes to the affirmative because their incentives and safeguards were more concrete, while I caution them to keep appeals fast and culturally aware so that nuance survives the rush.
I commend the clarity from both benches, yet I cast my vote for the negative on structural grounds, because law beats contract when the stakes are speech, though the affirmative impressed me with humane attention to vulnerable blocks.
This was a fierce and thoughtful battle, and my vote tips to the affirmative for measurable outcomes with transparent logs, even as I urge them to harden the firewall between criticism and contradiction of emergency facts.
By a margin of 2-1, tonight's winner is the affirmative, and congratulations to the progressive team for carrying the motion.
Thank you for the rigorous challenge, and we dedicate this win to every household that needs clear instructions faster than fear.
We appreciate the scrutiny, and we will keep refining the guardrails so that speed and liberty both have a seat in the lifeboat.
We respect the decision and remain committed to guarding the line where urgency must not erase open debate.
Thanks for the forum, and we will keep pushing for universal tools that protect every neighborhood without buying moderation by the hour.
Our thanks to both teams and to our judges for a debate that balanced urgency with liberty, and thank you to everyone who stayed with us to the end. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, and leave a thoughtful comment about which design you would trust when the next season hits. You can support this channel via the QR code on screen or the link in the description, which also features other series that explore very different topics. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and join us again for the next Debate Combats.